Welcome everyone to This Explainer. I am beyond excited to have you here today because we are going to unpack a truly fascinating case study. We're looking at a supernatural entity, a deeply rooted curse, and a haunting that actually migrated across entirely different regions of India. It's a story that blends localized folklore with incredible human psychology, and we are going to break the whole thing down step by step.
Right out of the gate, why on earth would a spirit hate a flour mill? And milk of all things. It sounds almost absurd, right? It's bizarre, it's highly specific, and quite frankly, it completely defies the usual ghostly tropes we're so used to. But as you'll see, these incredibly specific rules are exactly what make this haunting so dangerous and honestly so captivating to analyze. So let's get right into the sequence of events.
Section 1. Mystery of the Cursed Mill. A free artifact with a deadly cost.
Okay, let's dive into this. The catalyst for our story begins with a poor worker named Munna. He brings home a strangely free flour mill, totally unknowingly setting a massive horror in motion. You see, on his way home through the dark, Munna makes a critical, unwitting mistake. He stops by some bushes to, well, relieve himself. Unfortunately, he ends up completely disrespecting an unseen entity resting right there in the brush. Terrified by the sudden realization of a ghostly presence beneath him, he grabs his free mill and runs for his life. But the horror actually follows him home. That very night, the mill begins operating entirely on its own. Munna's daughter, Sonam, wakes up to a horrifying sight, a terrifying, ghastly woman sitting in their room, literally grinding bones in that newly acquired mill.
And this entity wasn't just there to give them a quick scare. She came with a terrifying mandate. She told them, "How long will you survive? Whoever uses this, I will chop them to pieces and grind them." This right here is a fundamental characteristic of this particular haunting. The entity establishes incredibly strict, highly violent rules. She claims the mill as her own, and the punishment for violating her rule is absolute, gruesome destruction. There is no gray area.
Section 2. Truth of the Witch's Past. Uncovering a 25-year-old tragedy.
Naturally, Munna's family seeks help. But when a local priest tries to cleanse the house, he is actually found decapitated. This shocking escalation forces his son to summon the entity for answers. And this brilliantly illustrates the real root of the horror, because it wasn't random at all. Looking back 25 years ago, two powerful men, the very same priest, Pandit Ramnath, and a wealthy merchant named Deendayal, harassed a local woman. When the woman bravely slapped them in defense, Deendayal's fragile ego literally led him to massacre her entire family. The witch haunting the mill? Yeah, she's the murdered daughter of that family. This entirely reframes the narrative, right? The decapitation of the pandit wasn't just a random act of evil. It was a calculated, long-awaited karmic retribution. To break the curse, the entity demands justice. The villagers are ultimately forced to hang the merchant Deendayal. And with her revenge complete, the witch finally leaves the village.
But the story doesn't end there. It evolves. In Munna's village, the curse was highly localized to the mill and driven by a very targeted revenge against specific abusers. But then, the entity migrates far away to a village in Meghalaya, northeast India. And here, the curse transforms entirely. It detaches from the mill and attaches to an everyday item, milk. Furthermore, the entity's motivation shifts from targeted revenge to a generalized blind rage against totally innocent strangers. It is a fascinating look at how unresolved supernatural rage mutates over time and distance.
Section 3. Terrifying hatred for milk. The fatal dairy ban of Meghalaya.
This brings us to the second half of our explainer. Enter Chandan, a government worker who has just been transferred to this remote village in Meghalaya, along with his wife, Girija. Chandan is a man of logic and bureaucracy, entirely unprepared for the bizarre supernatural ecosystem he's about to step into. Shortly after arriving, Girija tries to find milk to make a sweet pudding called kheer. A neighbor named Sheila stops her and explains the horrific reality of their town. There are no dairies here. The rule is simple and brutal. Anyone who uses milk faces immediate death, and the witch's signature execution style remains exactly the same as before. She violently separates the victim's head from their body.
I really want to emphasize the number 0 right now. Absolutely 0. That is the exact amount of milk tolerated by this entity. It is the absolute threshold between life and death in this community. Just one single drop is enough to summon her total wrath. So the crucial point is how human arrogance interacts with these absolute rules. Chandan, believing himself totally above local superstitions, completely ignores the warnings. He actually sneaks milk into the village just to satisfy his craving for kheer. The consequences are instantaneous and absolutely terrifying. Ghostly drops of milk begin dripping from their ceiling. Outside, a totally innocent neighbor named Anand is brutally decapitated while standing near a tree. And back inside the house, the witch manifests and violently burns Jarija's face with the boiling hot kheer. Chandan's arrogance didn't just endanger him, it triggered immediate, violent consequences for the entire community.
Section 4. End of the Witch. Divine Knife. Turning the rules against the entity.
Now, the situation is obviously catastrophic, but it leads to a thrilling shift in our narrative. We move from helpless horror to actionable defense. Because the villagers, it turns out, actually know exactly how to defeat the witch. The problem? They're entirely paralyzed by fear. No one is willing to risk losing their head to strike the fatal blow. The key to their salvation is a specific artifact called the Divya Chaku. It's a sacred, divine knife housed within the local temple. According to local lore, this is the one and only weapon that can permanently end the curse, but it absolutely must be plunged directly into the witch's stomach.
Let's move to and see how this builds into an incredibly brave, step-by-step trap. Realizing the total devastation his actions caused, Chandan actually takes responsibility. He and his injured wife formulate a plan to turn the entity's strict rules right back against her. Step 1. They deliberately cook an absolute feast of milk-based sweets to act as undeniable bait. Step 2. As the witch descends to exact her punishment, they ambush her by throwing a thick, heavy blanket over her to disorient her. And finally, Step 3. Chandan moves in and stabs her directly in the stomach with the Divya Chaku.
And the trap works perfectly. The sacred blade strikes true, and the witch is completely destroyed. But what happens next is truly remarkable. The destruction of the curse creates a massive supernatural reversal. Girija's severe facial burns heal instantaneously, leaving absolutely no scar. Even more miraculously, the decapitated villagers, including the neighbor Anand, are brought back to life. Erasing the entity completely unraveled the magical damage she had inflicted on the physical world. It's incredible.
Section 5. Main lesson of the story. Who are the real monsters? What an intense resolution. But before we wrap up this explainer, I really want us to take a step back. It's so easy to focus on the supernatural gore, the self-running mills, the missing heads, but if we look closer, a really profound thematic undercurrent runs through this entire narrative. Now, what's really interesting about this breakdown is when we look at the true catalysts of the horror. The witch was undeniably terrifying, for sure, but look at the humans involved. Deen Dayal and Ramnath's actions highlight human greed and extreme cruelty. Munna's careless actions represent a profound disrespect for the unseen world around him, and Chandan's complete dismissal of local knowledge perfectly captures the danger of arrogance and ignorance. In every single phase of this story, the supernatural violence was actually triggered by fundamental human flaws.
Which leaves us with this final, lingering thought to consider today. Was the witch truly the villain of the story? Or was she, from the very beginning, merely the terrifying, inevitable consequence of human sins and cruelty? It really makes you wonder who the real monsters are in these folklore tales. Thank you so much for joining me to explore the fascinating mechanics and hidden depths of this haunting. I hope this explainer gave you a whole new perspective on how we analyze the supernatural.